But yeah, you're probably. I mean, I haven't really looked into it, but if there's actually that much of a deficit of information
Oh
on
yeah,
like
it's insane.
asexuality and aromanticism, then yeah, that's sad. I wish there was more. All right, CrafterLula. My content manager and friend Cherry told me that you wanted to talk about something involving ace discourse and it not being really talked about on the left. So I guess introduce yourself to people watching the stream and the segment, and go ahead and put forth your thesis statement.
Sure. So, hello, chat. My name is, well, just call me Crafter, I guess. Um, yeah. Hold on. God damn it. This is, wow. Record. I already lost my train of thought. Fuck.
All right, we only
Um,
got 187 viewers right now.
yeah,
Don't be
I
nervous.
know, but still,
This is
holy
a low
shit.
viewer stream, so
Hey, for
there's
somebody who has a problem with public speaking, 180 people is still like, a living nightmare. But,
most of them aren't actually watching. They're
I
just like
know.
playing a video game or something. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I tell myself to get less nervous when there's a lot of viewers.
All right, so yeah, Crafter, I came here to chat about some stuff relating to asexuality, which is going to be a whole hoot and holler. Originally, I was going to come into debate with you about whether or not kink is inherently sexual, because I had a feeling you'd say yes. But while chatting with Cherry about it, I kind of wanted to shift the topic into something more useful. I figure I could hit two birds with one stone. One thing I've wanted to chat with you about is well, it kind of goes all the way back to the kink at pride discourse when you were talking about asexuality. Briefly, you mentioned asexuality, and you essentially said something along the lines of maybe we should be thinking about the asexual perspective here because like they probably don't want to see that shit. And
Mm-hmm.
it annoyed me, but it also, well, I mean, mostly it annoyed me because it's like that's not accurate at all. And I've done a little bit of research into it since then and realized most people have no idea what the fuck asexuality is, even in lefty spaces where people are very welcoming and open to these kind of ideas. It's not talked about at all. So I figure here what I want to do is kind of chat about what asexuality is, some common myths, misconceptions, maybe chat about why it matters to you and where you might end up seeing this in your own sphere of things. And then, yeah, I also like
Um,
to talk about the kink aspect of ace because a lot of people get stun locked about sex and kink when it comes to asexual people. So yeah, I don't know. That's one of those misconceptions that a lot of people have.
all right, so correct me if I'm wrong. Here, really quickly, I'll give a little bit of background on my kink at pride take and why I brought up like ace people, maybe not wanting to see that. So when I first started doing like YouTube, like left wing politics, I mean, obviously doing what I do, I had a lot of LGBT people in my audience, and that included a lot of ace people. And sometimes when I would make any sexual reference occasionally. Like there was someone in my audience, like there were people there that were like openly asexual. I can't name any names now because they were old viewers of my content. Who like if I talked about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have sex with Lonnie, they would be like gross, and they would respond like in negative ways to me bringing up sex or anything sexual or exhibiting any like bits of my sexuality. And I was like, yeah, a lot of ace people that I knew personally or that I was aware of just weren't a big fans of discussions or mentioning sex. It just wasn't something that they liked. It was unsettling to them. They saw it as crass or as rude. And for that reason, a lot of those people stopped watching my content, I would imagine. But I am aware of the fact that not all asexual people are necessarily aromantic or averse to kink, for example. I'm very aware of that. That's more of like a case-by-case thing. And when it comes to whether or not kink is inherently sexual, I think it is in the same way that kissing is inherently sexual, but nonetheless, I wouldn't necessarily say that kissing is inappropriate in every space. I don't think it's inappropriate to kiss your girlfriend while you're sitting on a park bench, even though that's a sexual action in a way. It is something to express your love and desire for that person, even if it's not quite as primal as sexual intercourse, right?
One thing that I'd point to in that regard is we kiss our children.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't I wouldn't go as
It's
far
a
as to
sign of
say that
affection.
it is a sign of affection, but affection doesn't have to be inherently or isn't necessarily sexual. But
Well, I also like to suck my girlfriend's boob when we're having sex sometime. That doesn't mean that a mother breastfeeding her child is sexual either. The context and the individuals engaging in the action are what determine whether or not it's sexual. When you're talking about a couple
yeah, but
like
that's
kissing
my
on a
point.
park bench, it's sexual, but that's sorry, I should say kissing between partners or people who are attracted to each other in some way, that is inherently sexual. Obviously, like giving your mom a kiss on the cheek before you go out to school isn't necessarily sexual, unless you are Chris Chan, in which
My
case it might
point,
be.
my point, or my response to that would be, if something is inherently sexual, it's sexual regardless of the context, and it's just a matter of how sexual is it. That's why I would argue kink isn't inherently sexual, because there are lots of non-sexual ways that a person can do and express themselves via kink. Same with kissing. There's no way a person would argue that when somebody kisses a child on the forehead or on the cheek, or hell, even on the lips, a lot of the people in the South and across the ocean are comfortable with doing that kind of stuff with their kids, and nobody would really argue that's sexual. I would argue it's very platonic, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's sexual. In order for something to be inherently sexual, it would have to be sexual regardless of all context,
Okay. Yeah, so inherently is a bad choice of words then. I'll completely own that. Yeah. There are definitely cases where kissing, and obviously even like a mouth touching a breast is not necessarily sexual, but I would argue that in most cases, like in cases where you've got like a couple kissing, like that's probably maybe not as extreme as sex, but a sexual act to a degree.
Yeah, okay. So if your point of view on that is like you believe that for just about anything, the context matters, for be it a kiss or be it kink, the context is what determines whether or not it's sexual. Would you agree with that?
I agree, yeah.
All right, cool beans. So that we can talk about okay, actually, if you kind of understand that, then you can probably understand why ace people not a huge fan of kink. But really quick, I want you to give me a definition of asexuality for me, just to start this conversation off.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably know more, but here's my understanding of asexual and aromantic. I like to bring up both of these because a lot of people assume that all asexual people are aromantic, and that's something that I became quite early on in my political career to not be the case. To be aromantic is to be not romantically interested in people, just generally. That's your sexuality. It's just not something that comes easily to you or comes naturally to you. Romantic attraction. While asexual is where sexual attraction does not come naturally to you. You do not typically find yourself attracted to people's bodies or their sexual organ. It's just not something that happens for asexual people. That doesn't necessarily make them aromantic. They can't see somebody and not fall in love with their personality and want to have a relationship with them. They're just asexual. That's my understanding. You can correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Nicely done. So, your definition is absolutely correct. Here's the thing, though. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of information as to why I kind of started smiling midway through your explanation there. So, way across the pond, in Britbongerland, they did a lovely study with about 108,000 participants, queer people, basically questioning them on, well, a variety of things. For ace people, they talked about a couple of things, namely how comfortable they feel talking about their sexuality and how many people among the people who surveyed knew of what asexuality was. Of the 108,000 people people surveyed, about 2% of them knew what asexuality was. Among those 2%, they were asked to provide a definition for asexuality, and 75% got it wrong. So you are among the top 25% of that 2%. Congratulations.
Well, yeah. I mean, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I think asexuality is something that's not very well known about. If I would not be surprised if I went outside. Maybe where I live in Palm Springs. It's a very if you've heard of it, it's a very, very progressive LGBT place. There's gay bars in every corner. There's LGBT flags everywhere. It's just, that's the place where I am. It's not far from LA. So if I walked around where I am, maybe people would know about it. But generally, if I walked around, I don't know, Tampa back where I live in Florida, the closest city to me, I wouldn't be surprised if most people couldn't define asexual. Absolutely. No, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, so for the audience, do you mind if I give a more clinical definition for what asexuality is?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So asexuality is when a person does not experience sexual attraction or experiences very limited or conditional sexual attraction. So in that case, it encompasses everything from traditionally asexual people to demisexuals who only experience sexual attraction when there's a connection, or agosexuals who like the idea of sex, but when it comes to like actually doing it themselves, no go. Or gray ace people, which is also kind of an umbrella term in and of itself, but basically people who experience very little sexual attraction, or they sometimes experience it, but it's very conditional, and sometimes the conditions are random and not known. Yeah, pretty much that. And then aromantic, or aromanticism, I guess, is the exact same definition, but replace sexual attraction with romantic attraction.
Yeah.
I feel like one thing a lot of people get stuck on when it comes to asexuality and aromanticism in general is like they don't really think about the different types of attraction that we have. For example, like most people can't distinguish between things like sexual attraction, sensual attraction, aesthetic attraction, things like that. Like, do you know the differences between those three things?
Well, just sort of I haven't heard many of those words before, but just kind of based on the words, I feel like I could probably piece together a fairly accurate definition.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine aesthetic attraction is more so an attraction to certain aspects of a person's being, physically speaking.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm completely straight, but if I saw a dude walking down the street with abs and pecs, I'd be like, damn, I wish that was me. I wish I had abs and pecs like that. Fuck, that guy goes to the gym. Fuck yeah. It's not a sexual attraction by any means, but I'm clearly like admiring this person's certain aspects of this person's body. What was the other ones that you listed?
Sensual attraction and sexual attraction.
Sexual attraction seems to be an attraction to someone's sexuality, like their sexual features, etc. Well, sensual attraction seems to be an attraction to the to a certain behavior, or it's hard to put into words. Action being taken, like for example, if a girl like slaps her boobie, and that turns you on, like that would be sensual attraction, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
You stumbled into the correct answer. Actually, that's actually surprising. Good job. Like, holy shit, my dude. Yeah, no, like aesthetic attraction would be like, damn, big titty GF, love it, or big titty golf girlfriend GF.
Or MILFs. I love MILFs. That's aesthetic attraction.
MILFs is, or your attraction to MILFs is an example of both sexual attraction, I would argue, but also aesthetic attraction, and just those two mingling together. And then
cool.
sensual attraction is basically attraction to engaging with the senses. So like it's not purely based on somebody else, I guess. Like for example, being touched, having somebody breathe on you, like the back of your neck or something like that. Those kind of things. A massage, for example, would be an example of something that's sensual, and sensual attraction would just be like you want to engage in those kind of things. That I would argue is where a lot of asexuality, or a lot of where asexuals who are engaged in sex or kink, that's where they get their enjoyment out of. They enjoy engaging in these kind of things that make their body feel good, but there's no special spark for them for as far as like sexual desire goes. Like, I don't know. Usually, I guess the term would be like chemistry, like we felt some kind of sexual chemistry and everything.
There's no like spark.
Yeah, there's no spark. There's no like special spice to it. It still tastes good, but it's like it's a different flavor than most other people's, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm kind of shocked actually. This is cool. Oh goodness. So I guess we can move on to another topic. You seem to have a pretty good grip on what asexuality actually is. We can talk about what it's not.
Yeah, let's go into it.
Yeah, this would probably be more for the benefit of the audience, but like a couple of the things that people mistake asexuality for are things like mental illness, it being a phase, it being a modern thing, or like assuming it's something like celibacy, abstinence, or hypoactive sexual desire disorder. They think of it in terms of like what they do, as opposed to what's going on in the inside of their brain.
Yeah. I guess that could be pretty common, I suppose. I guess when it comes to the kink stuff, because I know it's going to come to this inevitably. Do you want to
talk about it? But yeah, we can get there eventually.
Well, we talk like I think this is the topic that's going to really like that people that's really contentious, that people really want to like, and I want to hear your take on it.
Sure.
So, kink is an interesting word. I still don't really know, like, a hard definition on what kink is, and I don't think there really is a hard definition on it, right? Because it's subjective. Kink is completely subjective. Would you agree with that?
I would argue that the language is shifting, and that's where a lot of the confusion comes from. Like before, kink and fetish were kind of interchangeable, but they do have distinct meanings, and I feel like those meanings ought to be more important and be more talked about. Like one of the reasons I want kink to be something that can be discussed is because, well, for a start, people should know the distinction between a kink and a fetish. The biggest distinction is a kink is something that is more. Hold on. A fetish is something that is required in order to like get off. So, for example, if you want to masturbate and you have, let's say, a pantyhose fetish, you need to incorporate pantyhose into your masturbation session, or it's just not going to happen. Whereas a kink is more this general atypical arousal, I guess is the best way to put it. Like somebody who enjoys the idea of being tied up. That may be sexual for them, it may not, but like there is something special within their brain about being tied up that just, does it for them, I guess is the best way to describe it. But yeah, it's basically atypical arousal.
Okay. Yeah, it's a decent definition of things. Well, atypical arousal. So would you argue that that arousal in most cases or in all cases, I want to hear your take on this, is generally asexual arousal?
Um, to be honest, yeah, I would. Like the distinction between kink and fetish is, obviously the sexual component. Kink can be mixed with sexuality. Also, sorry, I just bumped my desk. Kink can be mixed with sexuality, absolutely, but I feel like it's very distinct. Like you can do a kink scene and never engage in sex, or you can engage in sex while doing the kink, but it's like they are kind of two separate things, and they kind of come together to create something greater than the sum of the parts, I guess, for the people that enjoy sex and kink together. But yeah, I would argue that for the most part, kink is largely about the sensual experience as opposed to the sexual experience.
Yeah, so I guess if we bring it around to like the drama that sort of started all of this, which I really didn't get very involved in as much as other creators did, I kind of avoided it because I thought it was kind of a pointless discussion.
Yeah.
Was the Kink at Pride discourse. And my position on it was like 90% about optics. And I know that like optics is a touchy game to play because you could make the argument that like, well, when we do good things, it makes bad people angry, and that's bad optics to the bad people. And you could make that case, absolutely, and call out hypocrisy there. Like, why are you in favor of there being progressive messages in media if that pisses off the right and makes them stronger because they can push their narrative more to edgy gamer bros? And it's more so about like, so if we've got, I think like the meme was like there being like people wearing like leather like chaps and leashes and stuff like that at Pride events where there could be kids. And my argument was mostly that like that's probably stuff that should probably be kept to private venues and not at open public events where there might be kids present, if for no other reason. Like in most cases, the kid's probably going to be like, ooh, that person wearing the leather doggy suit is probably like, dressed up like a doggy. The kid's probably not going to know what's going on or give a fuck. And by the time they're old enough to know, they're probably it's not going to bother them. It's not going to traumatize them or fuck with them. I think more so the big problem with that would be like the perception of that. Yeah. Like for me at least, like for pride events, like the idea is you want to make it like a space where everybody can feel free to come and express their support for LGBT people. But when it comes to that sort of behavior, it can make it seem like an environment where you might not want to bring like the family to come and like raise signs up in favor of LGBT rights. And that was my take on things.
Yeah. So I don't want to rehash that particular discourse. I'd imagine you're burnt out on it, But yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. But I would also argue that this is worth talking about for the same reason as, it was worth defending trans people back during the Stonewall riots. The LGBT movement as a whole kind of made the same argument that, trans people are really hard to defend optically, so throw them under the bus. And it ended up hurting them in the long run. And I feel like for us, we have to come up with a better answer for this particular discourse than just probably shouldn't be, because like, let's be honest, the right and 4chan and all the other fucking reactionary assholes, they are going to keep bringing up Kink at Pride as like a reoccurring thing over and over again until there is an adequate answer for that. And I feel like the adequate answer is you kind of have to destigmatize kink. You have to actually talk about what it is. And well, Yeah.
Well, the issue is that I have with the right is that the kink at Pride thing isn't actually that big of a problem. Most of
No.
these Pride parades aren't actually quite as like sexually scandalous as it would be made out to be. Like that one image that went viral, the right
Yeah, the
uses
puppy player one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, with the that was at a leather festival that a
Yep.
parent that was already marked as like probably don't bring your kids here,
Yep.
like as being like in an SFW place that
Yep.
they nonetheless brought their kids to. That's more of a take a problem with the parent thing there, not the event that was happening.
Yeah.
That's a proper event for there to be that kind of kinky shit happening there. Most definitely, that's the proper environment.
Yeah.
But it's really not as huge of a problem as people made it out to be.
Yep.
Obviously, that one example was not even from a Pride event, although those areas do tend to be pretty pro-gay. That's why there were like Pride flags there, and that's why it's so easy for the right to do that. I guess a better example or a better comparison would be, it feels like if you know how the right likes to claim that the trans movement is trying to force kids to transition.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah.
It feels almost like with this Kink at Pride discourse, those that were in favor of it or that came out like on the pro Kink at Pride thing, it felt like what they were doing was rather than saying, no, hold on, we're not advocating for inappropriate stuff to be done in front of kids. This image that you keep bringing up didn't even happen at a Pride festival. What we're talking about is certain behaviors that aren't necessarily super sexual or inappropriate allowed to be done at like Pride events, things that are, sort of part of gay culture, right? And it feels like a response from a lot of people was the equivalent of saying, no, we do want kids to transition. We do want to force kids to transition with hormones, even though kids aren't really, like most cases aren't even supposed to be given hormones. It's supposed to be hormone blockers. I don't know. It just feels like the wrong way to go about that conversation is the way that a lot of the pro Kink at Pride people did it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, one thing you have to keep in mind is, like, kids develop kinks very early. Like, I knew about mine as early as, I was prepubescent, for fuck's sake. Like, kids know about these things pretty early, and there are consequences to not teaching them that kink is a thing that happens, but that it's something that should be engaged in when you're old enough and, ready. I guess is the best way to put it. Because, like, for example, if you have something like what is called breath play, if you're into breath play, people can die from that shit. And if they're, like, silenced and pushed into a corner and being like, I can't talk about this with anybody or they're going to look at me like I'm a freak, they'll practice it alone. And, yeah, people have died because of that kind of shit. So, like,
I remember a lot of really big people who were really big into a BDSM got really pissed off at the movie adaptation of I want to say Grey's Anatomy. Or Grey's the New
50
Black.
Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey. I cannot remember the name.
50
Shades of Grey because they use like zip ties for bondage and shit. Like just very bad BDSM practices that were done. And I remember when it first came out, there were like some people, I know Seanhead ironically was one of the people who were like into BDSM who came out to say this movie is a bad display of BDSM. And I do think it's important for like young people who are like starting to become sexually active or discovering their sexuality to know like, okay, if you're into this thing, it's fine. And there are ways to practice it that are safe and good to do. Obviously, I mentioned breath play, which I'm going to assume is like choking to the point of almost passing out and then giving breath, I assume. That's what that is?
Yeah, usually. Like breath play it can't be just as simple as like choking, so it makes it harder to breathe. But for the more extreme ones, well, you get the picture.
Like suffocation, things like that, right? Yeah. Like feeling loss of breath is the main idea, right? And yes, that could be dangerous if practiced wrong, but it could also be completely fine if practiced correctly. And if you're somebody who's into that and you're like, I don't know, 16 years old, you're sexually active at 16, and you want to practice that, you need to have had the education, know how to do that safely. Otherwise, you end up with a dead chick in your car. And no one wants a dead chick in their car. Yeah. My house is not dead chick storage. That's a very edgy reference.
No, I've also watched Pulp Fiction, yes.
Yeah.
Except, wrong adjective.
Wrong adjective, definitely.
No, it's wrong noun.
The better one. Noun. Yeah, I don't know. That word doesn't deserve any classification in our language. Anyway, gotcha. Memes aside, no, I completely agree. And the way that I kind of see it as being like the proper way for kids to know about sex, because like it's probably not good for like, for example, like when I was 6 years old, me and my grandma went to the flea market, and we were looking for a VHS copy of Lord of the Rings. and because I really wanted to watch the extended edition. We were trying to find a version with the extended edition, and we went to this person at this flea market that was selling a bunch of VHSs, and we were like, hey, can we have a copy of the extended edition of Lord of the Rings on VHS? And it would be like a 2 VHS tape thing. The guy's like, oh yeah, I think I got it. And it's like this fucking blank VHS tape that he wrote Lord of the Rings on, but a lot of the people at the flea market pirated movies, so we just assume he taped it on there, because you can tape things on a VHS tape. So I take it home with my grandma, and I put it into the VCR, and I'm about to start the first part of the VHS tape of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Part 1 of the extended edition on VHS, and my grandma's not in the room, and I'm in the room with the TV putting it in, and I turn it on, and it's grainy, and it's kind of hard to tell what it is, but it was porn. And I was, first of all, traumatized because I was 8 years old, and second of all, very scared. I immediately turned off the TV and the VCR, ran outside, and started playing, like pretending to play, and like, I don't really feel like watching the movie right now. And she's like, no, like I paid money for that. We were looking around the flea market all day trying to find this movie. And then she goes inside, and I, in hindsight, presume, turned on the VHS and saw what it was, figured out what happened, and she didn't push anymore after that, and I obviously didn't get in trouble or anything. But, like, there's obviously an extent where you probably don't want an 8-year-old watching, like, hardcore porn, which is what was on that TV. But you also don't want an 8-year-old kid to not know... I mean, like if you're a boy and you have a penis, to know how to clean your dick, like you have to know these things, right? You have to, if you're a boy and you're uncircumcised like me, I had at younger than 8 years old, I need to know what a penis was to be able to know what was going on. At around 10 or 11, you need to know what an erection is, or I assume like on the girl side of things, there's other stuff, but I didn't know that because like there's a point where like as you get older, you need to be educated in these topics, and I think by the age of 14 or 15, kids or teenagers at that point need to know what sex is. They need to know what protection is. They need to know what kink is, because if they're into those particular things, they need to know what it is and you know how to engage in it. I think around that age, it's probably absolutely appropriate to know what kink is and how to deal with it. At 14, 15, like most, I guess, non-asexual people are probably watching porn anyway. That's more or less my perspective on how like kids should engage with like sexual topics.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like for a lot of the same reasons. Like for a start, like what kink is inherently is it's a contract. I don't know if you've ever engaged in it, but like for example, yes, one of the reasons what is it, 50 Shades of Grey is so fucking infuriating is it because it basically is 90, or I don't know how long the fucking movie is, I didn't watch it, but it's like 90 minutes of fucking really bad BDSM porn that doesn't show the setup or the aftercare afterwards. So like most of kink, I would argue, is the setup. It's the initial contract, the establishment of consent. And that is something that I would say kids can't do. And that's why I would never advocate for kids or even teenagers to do kink. It's because they're quite literally signing a contract. They're giving up a portion of power and giving it to somebody else. And, you know, kids and teenagers, they're not really in a place where they're mature enough to be able to do that. They don't have enough life experience. They're very open to being manipulated and taken advantage of. So obviously, like, they shouldn't be practicing this stuff, but they should know what it is, and they should know what they should at least have an idea of how to go about it. Not necessarily like teaching them how to do it, but give them the basics so that they know, hey, if somebody is going to take advantage of me, well, this is how they do it badly, you know? I don't know.
Well,
I don't feel like I can explain that well, but it's like, you know, for the same reason that we should teach kids about sex to prevent them from being taken advantage of by adults.
Exactly. I was about to bring that up. A lot of conservative white conservative states are so fucking rampant with child abuse because of these kids don't know like that they're being taken advantage of sexually because they don't know what it is, because these states are so puritanical with their inability or their neglection of teaching kids what these things are. Trying to protect kids too much from this can also lead to harm in that respect. And of course also you don't want like how many teenage girls do you think stumble across 50 Shades of Grey, and then
Twilight.
Or Twilight too, I guess, but 50 Shades of Grey I think is a more explicit example. Found out they were into BDSM kink, and then God forbid practice the things they do in that movie. I mean, from my understanding, the relationship between the main character of that movie and Gray is the last name of the guy, is like very abusive. It's like kidnapping happens, non-consensual shit happens.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
thank you.
there's a way to do those kind of things consensually, and it shows quite literally none of them. It's very infuriating to me because, like, again, kink is largely about the setup and about the aftercare afterwards, which Christian never does, obviously.
Oh
And
yeah,
he also
no.
never establishes consent. Not really. He more or less coerces her, being like, I will pay you your bills, and in exchange, you sign this contract to be my slave. And it's like, that is the very definition of coercion. Like, he's just straight up raping her for a bunch of episodes, and she just comes to accept it. Like, that is not healthy, and yeah, fuck. God, there's
Yeah,
so
well,
much wrong with that movie. I would have to watch it to be able to go through all of it, but like, fuck, I don't want to. It's so gross.
well, you
Um,
seem like you're probably a YouTuber, right? You've got a nice mic and a good camera. So are you a YouTuber?
I tried. I basically, I tried doing the video thing. I basically actually stumbled where you found yourself stumbling, and then eventually you moved on to live streaming. But for me, like, I tried doing prepared content because I wasn't very good at live streaming, and just doing something for 2 hours a day with 0 viewers just didn't strike me as fun. So I tried doing prepared content. Problem is, I would dump like 20, 40 hours into a video and then get 10 people watching it or one person watching it. And I'm just like, the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
But the thing is,
Oh, sorry.
I
Go.
sorry, I was gonna say, well, the thing is, while I ended up ditching it after about a month or two, um, I liked the audio fidelity I got from like just a medium in the road mic, and again a medium in the road camera. That I'm like, I don't want to go without these. So yeah, I bought a nice mic, I bought a nice camera, or nice quote unquote. Um, yeah, I don't know, I just like it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all the tools you need. If you don't mind, I have like a small little bit of advice. I love giving advice to creators that want to like
Oh, I
grow
know.
because there's a lot of stuff that like I wish I knew starting out that I like I there's a lot of things I wish I knew, and there's a lot of things I learned from watching YouTube since I was like 10 years old that I learned that helped me get to where I am now, even if where I am now isn't like as big as you could hope to be. Like when it comes to you shouldn't be streaming to zero viewers. There's no reason to be streaming if you're streaming to nobody. And that's why my biggest recommendation to people who want to be streamers is never start out streaming. Unless you're starting day one as a streamer and you're friends with like someone who gets 5,000 or more viewers, and they're going to like send, and you're streaming with them and they're going to send all their viewers over. Like that's one thing. But the first step is always establish a platform on through prepared content. Usually it's YouTube or TikTok. You gain an audience there, and then from there you can move on to streaming, and that audience follows you to streaming. And streaming is where you want to be generally as a content creator. It is certainly the most lucrative. You're going to much quicker get to the point where you can do it first time or full time if you're streaming. My recommendation would be, this is just a great video idea. Watch 50 Shades of Grey, then make a video review of it where you talk about everything they did wrong and make a prepared video of that. You don't have to put in a ton of work. You could probably write a script. You could write a script in a few hours for something like that. It doesn't have to be super long. 10 to 12 minutes is the ideal. And some simple editing will do it. Won't take too much effort, and it might do pretty damn well. That's a video I'd watch.
Yeah.
You kind of have to balance the amount of effort you put in. You shouldn't be putting more effort into your videos than they deserve necessarily. If your video is only going to get 10 viewers, it doesn't deserve 10 hours of work. It deserves like 2 hours of work, because then you're putting out more videos. The more videos you put out, the more views you're going to get. And as you get more views and obviously more money from ad revenue, then you can start to put more effort into those videos, because now you know people are going to watch them. And then from there, once you get burned out on that, you can move to streaming and you've got an audience that's going to follow you there. That's what I did, and that seems to be what every streamer does.
Yeah, it's not bad advice. So we've briefly talked about kink and whatnot. Mind if I tie this back to the original topic of asexuality?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing, as we talked about earlier, a lot of people get stun locked on asexual people being kinky, which, like, I kind of get it. People kind of assume kink is like, getting tied up and then getting fucked very roughly or something like that. But
well, like relationship dynamics is a good example of kink, right?
So,
like.
Yeah, for example, unironically, I just recently learned about, well, I mean, I've heard of this one, but I never actually looked into it. There's a thing called wham, or wet and messy, and unironically, it's just people getting pied in the face or getting slimed, like, fucking Nickelodeon shows. Some kid looked at that and thought, I just found a kink. And that's it. And it's often not very sexual. They don't have sex. It's just they enjoy the feeling of being messy, of quote unquote, playing around like that. God, yeah, a lot of kink is about the dynamic, about giving up a portion of power to somebody else, and then often the flavor of kink is just how you frame it. For some people, that's somebody is the rope bunny, and one person is the rope jockey. The daddy little kink thing. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can frame it. Yeah, like good lord, and of course, like MILF and well, you get the idea. I think in a MILF relationship, you would be the sub. Actually, that's not always true.
Absolutely not. No, my kink or whatever would be I like MILFs, and I am definitely not a sub.
Fair dues. That's actually another misconception a lot of people have, and I kind of stumbled right into it.
That is a misconception. Yeah. Here are my reasons for liking MILFs. Okay, for starters, I think they're hotter. I think like women typically get hotter when they're around the age of like 30, 40, or 50, and there's women in their 60s I think are hot. Cate Blanchett, she's over 60. She's really hot. That's part of it. And Xander Hall needs to stop calling me a MILF or I'll buy a strap-on. Do not, Lonnie. Do not. But that's part of it. And then also, I realized pretty early on that I don't like... I mean, obviously, this isn't the case for every girl that was my age at the time, being like 18, 19, up to 22. But a lot of women my age do tend to be a little bit like they're trying to figure things out as well. And I don't want to be with someone who's also trying to figure things out. I want to be with someone who's, for the most part, figured things out and has their shit together. And mostly older people have their shit together, way more so than younger people my age. I don't have my shit together.
Yeah.
And that's sort of an appeal to me as well. I want to be with somebody in a relationship with somebody who knows the world better than I do. Because I've learned a lot of things dating my girlfriend who's 7 years older than I am. She's going to teach me how to drive. There's a lot of things like that. I learned a lot of things because of that. And that's part of the attraction for me too, is I don't want to be with somebody who's also trying to figure things out.
Yeah, that makes sense, But yeah, fun fact, a lot of the ones that people think are traditionally like, always subs, like for example, the girls who call the person they're dating daddy, them, they're everywhere. They're on fucking TikTok, all over the fucking place.
And I dated a girl like that, and I wasn't super into it, but I just kind of played along with it because I was like, she's into it. It doesn't bother me, I guess. It's a little cringy, but She was like, this was back when I was in high school, and her name was Ariella was her name. Same name as Ariel Scarcella, almost the same. And she was like, she unironically said uwu and posted like the 3 emoji and called me daddy and shit like that. And that didn't last very long, but it was my first like long time relationship. Ironically, this is funny. It is one of the few long time relationships I've had. I dated her for 2 months, and I dated another girl for 2 months. I dated another girl for 3, and then I dated Lonnie, and we've been dating for like 2 years almost.
Yeah, nice.
So that's my history.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've done that side of things. I've also done actually I've done a lot of things. Like for an asexual, aromantic person, like holy shit, I've done a lot of stuff. Like not too long ago, I just literally went to a cuddle party where you snuggle up with a bunch of people and then I ate a girl out. It was lovely. Well, like there was another guy straddling her back, and yeah, like that was a lot of fun to me. Like for example, I don't know, I guess I can briefly talk about sex and ace because that's the topic. People are supposed to be learning shit, for the benefit of the chat. But like for me, when it comes to like sexual stuff, what I like is I like other people having a good time. I'm not having sex for me. Like, frankly, I don't give a fuck. What I get pleasure out of is, one, I get to, have fun making other people have fun. Having that sense of power in that I can, like, give a girl an orgasm even though I don't fucking want one. That is a delightful feeling to me, Likewise, like, pain is kind of just fun. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced, like, that kind of side of things, but it can
real pain. Yeah, I mean, I attempted suicide once, and
sweetie, that's not the kind of pain I'm talking about.
I tried to cut my hand off with a fillet knife, and I went deep. So
not that kind of pain. I'm not talking about self-inflicted. Actually, I'm talking about self-inflicted.
Well, for a lot of people, self-inflicted pain can be a turn-on for them. Yeah. That can be their kink or their fetish, even. But no, like the closest that I get to that is like I like when a girl scratches my back like really hard with her nails because
Yeah.
that's a sign that I'm doing well. Not so
Yeah.
much because that pain is a turn on for me in any way, but more so it's like, hey, if someone sees you at the beach or you got your shirt off and they see a bunch of claw marks on your back, they're like, sheesh!
I am actually kind of in the same boat. One of the reasons I like pain is just because, like, I like to know that I can actually take it. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of a cathartic feeling to know that I could literally be in just an immense amount of pain and be like, okay, I survived. That's awesome.
Oh no, I'm the opposite. Little irritations fuck with me. If you've been watching my stream lately,
same.
you know, like having my mic in front of me like this, I hate it. I'm going to buy like a headset mic that has like the little like I've got. If you're watching my stream right now, you can see the little mic. I'm getting. I hate that. I hate having the boom arm in front of me. I hate this wire. Like all this shit just constantly like irritates me and puts me in like a bad mood. Small irritations aren't as big a deal. If I get like. I feel like I prefer being shot in the arm to having to sit for 30 hours straight in like very uncomfortable, like being really sweaty, like being really sweaty with my like shirt stuck to me, soaking wet, just being really hot and sweaty, having plenty of water. So I'm not going to die or have heat stroke, just being sweaty and overheated the whole time. I would take being shot in the arm over 30 hours of being put in like a heat chamber with all the water I could ask for. That's my take on pain.
Oh, goodness. That's not a terrible view of pain. I mean, that's most average people's view of pain. Like,
you like the idea of being able to withstand pain and being able to just tolerate it. I would like to take something quick and really painful over something mildly upsetting for a long, prolonged period of time.
Yeah. I know, I've known and been with people who absolutely adore pain. Like, for them, it is sexual. Like, for them, it turns them on to have massive bruises that are like the size of my fist on like their thighs or something like that. And it's like, good Lord, I don't get it, but it's kind of fun giving it to them because like they don't have the typical pain response. They're usually very much enjoying it. And it's a nice show. But yeah, I don't know. From an asexual side of things, kink is just kind of fun. Like it's the best of both worlds. I don't have to be I don't have to be sexual if I don't want to. But hey, if I do, I could just jump right in. You know, most kinks allow for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like the kinkiest person, I guess you could say. No. I took like the kink test, and
I saw you were fucking vanilla, yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, like, there's nothing wrong with people being vanilla.
Like as far as things go, you could say I'm pretty vanilla. Like I'm definitely like more dominant in any relationship dynamic, especially sexual. But like I'm pretty standard. I don't like anal. I don't like I don't like receiving it. I don't even like giving it. I think anal's kind of gross. It's just not my thing. But yeah, I mean that's. A lot of people call me vanilla for that, and I guess on the grand scheme of things, compared to many people, you'd consider me vanilla, but I don't know.
Here's the thing. On the one hand, yeah, I mean, how do I put this? Not really. Like, what is and isn't vanilla is slowly kind of eroding over time. Like, one of the things I like to encourage in a lot of people is they should be willing to, or they should be able to try and experiment with kink without being looked down upon, you know, that kind of thing. Like, if somebody wants to try a thing, I think they should be able to try a thing without shame. And, you know, like, there's no shame in not liking a thing either. Like, for the same reason that I want to encourage people to try new things if it's something that they are curious about, I also don't want to encourage people to, like, push boundaries that they already know damn well they appreciate. You know, like, if you don't like anal, I'm not going to be like, you know, rail Lonnie in the ass or be railed by Lonnie in the ass. You know, like, if I make those kind of jokes, it's purely a fucking joke, mostly because, like, I don't know, I'm trying to make you uncomfortable because I'm an asshole chatter who also, you know, is an oiler.
Well, that's your job. That's your job in chat. You're supposed to make jokes about...
I am a goddamn oiler. I buy tier 3 fucking subs or tier 4 subs exclusively, and I donate shit tons of money to you. I deserve to say mean shit to you. I don't, actually. I'm not entitled to jack shit, but...
I've thought about, for a while, getting a Sharp... Once I get the VR headset, getting a Sharpie and writing the usernames of, like, the top donators during the time we were raising money for it. You'd definitely be on the list on the VR headset with, like, a Sharpie, just so it's like, here are the people who paid for this thing. Oh, here's your contributions.
I don't know if that would give me, like, a dopamine rush, or if I'd start to feel ashamed of myself, like, holy shit, what have I done?
Your name would be on some streaming equipment. 100% do that? Yeah, like a silver Sharpie would do it, Lonnie, yeah. Because the VR headset's black, yeah. Yeah, I thought that would be a good idea, because, like, as long as it's not on the lenses, it's not going to affect the way the thing performs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I thought about doing
oh,
that.
sorry. I'm reading my notes here. Do you mind if I read you a neat asexual fact?
Sure.
A lot of people think that asexuality is the first internet orientation, but unironically, do you know who Magnus Hirschfeld is?
No, but I am very aware that asexual people have been documented in history going back thousands of years.
Correct.
Same
But
goes for trans people.
yeah, a great example of this is Magnus Hirschfeld. And if you don't know who that is, Demon Mama did a wonderful video on them. And yeah, if you've ever seen video or if you've ever seen photos of like Nazi children burning books, the books they were burning were from the German Sex Institute that Magnus Hirschfeld founded. And in 1907, I believe it was, he actually specifically talked about transgender, or not transgender people, Jesus Christ. He did talk about them, but in 2000, fuck me, Jesus Christ, ADHD brain. In 1907, there we go. He talked about asexual people and explicitly talked about asexual people and some of the plights they face, and that it's very similar to what, well, the gay community faced at the same time. Fun fact: a surprising number of ace people are really uncomfortable with like talking about their, well, their orientation, because like, fuck, it can be really depressing having to constantly answer the same questions. It feels like an unrelenting tide of apathy, you know? Like nobody seems to give a shit and nobody seems to believe you. And it's always like I feel like I'm slowly being gaslit into either not believing or not believing, you know, what my brain is telling me, or to shut the fuck up, not talk, and just, you know, slip into obscurity. Fuck.
Yeah, I think that even on the left talks about ace people are pretty pretty like scarce, but I think a lot of that has to do with the left is a lot of time it feels so the right is reactionary in that they are reacting in some way to society progressing, and they don't usually get their panties in that much of a bundle over ace people. It's usually trans people right now is like the big thing. Like they'll make jokes about ace people, like internet sexuality, but it's never like you don't really see conservatives making videos about the ace epidemic, right?
No.
It's just not something that happens. So the left conversely doesn't discuss it as much.
Although I will point out that might change. I have a feeling that
Very well might.
You know how you and Vosh mentioned asexual people as like an example of why maybe kink and pride is not a good thing? The right is probably going to adopt a very similar rhetoric to that eventually, once they realize that asexual people exist and they can be weaponized to kind of fracture the community a little bit. Like,
oh yeah, we'll have an ace Blair White, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can already imagine what they'll say. Basically, look, the left will literally accept anybody, or not the left, but the queer community will literally accept anybody, even people with a mental illness who absolutely need to get help. Nope, that's an identity. Don't look any further into it. Don't get help. You know, like that's probably how they would spin it. And like, fuck, like I don't know. I could see them like literally making that exact argument, and then just, you know, the person they're talking to just being fucking dumbfounded.
I've been telling people today during my segments today, mark my words, in 20 to 30 years, the right will be advocating for them to have the right to shit in restaurants on the floor because they want the medical freedom to do that. I swear to God, they will. I lose any like mutual human respect for people on the right more and more as I do this job. Sometimes I wonder if like, fuck, if I'm like this after 2 years.
Real reason. Hold on, that's the real reason we've got to be talking about kink, because let's be honest, all those right-wingers, they're the people who are ashamed to come out with their kink, and now they're too scared to. Like, they're the reason we need to talk about this. Keep kids from becoming right-wingers. Talk about, you know, safely choking your kids.
I think Ben Shapiro's asexual, and he's afraid to come out. I think he is. Ben Shapiro gives me asexual energy. Do you agree?
He takes pride in how, I don't know if this is just a meme or not, but he takes pride in his wife not having a wet ass pussy. So yeah, I'd say he gives ace vibes.
I like to, my headcanon is unironically that Ben is asexual and he's really struggling with his identity. And if I could like have a conversation with him, I could help him like, you know, come out of the closet as ace. That's how I feel.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it'll never happen, but good.
I mean, it fits perfectly. He's a right-wing demagogue, so he's got tons of social and financial pressure to keep him from being who he truly is. He's been raised as like an Orthodox Jewish person, right? So he's like super, you know, like conservative. His family's very conservative. He's expected to have a wife and kids and live that particular sort of conservative ideal, you know, the two kids and a white picket fence and a dog. Who knows, maybe he is ace and you know, he's just sort of been socially and financially pressured into taking the position he's in now.
Oh God, I wish that were true, but let's be honest, That's not the case. He's just a fucking cuck. He's just a dumbass cuck.
You never know. You
Like,
never know.
he
You've
is.
seen those pastors who are super like fire and brimstone anti-gay who get caught giving a blowjob on camera. It's happened so many times. Sometimes the most virulent, bigoted people are themselves hiding something, you know?
Yeah, usually they are. I feel like, though, in the case of Ben Shapiro, he's less that and more just like kind of a grifter. You know, at this point, like it's about the money for him, and like, like I don't know. I've never like seen him talk and think, yeah, he genuinely believes this stuff. Like when you talk with anti-gay pastors, they believe that shit. They will talk about it all the time, whether they're doing a sermon or just, you know, when they're talking with you just for funsies. Like they will find a way to insert that into it because they need to tell you, I'm not gay, and I can prove that by hating gay people. Like he doesn't give me that kind of impression. He gives me the impression of once I sign off, I'm apolitical. Fuck this shit. But
I feel like that's probably the case for him. I do like the idea though that Ben Shapiro is practicing his monologues in the mirror though every morning. I do like that, that idea. Because there's no way that the words that he strings together are off the bat. Otherwise, he should be a professional rapper because he's got to practice that shit. There's no fucking way.
Unironically, yes. He strikes me as like the type of person like me where like his brain goes really, really fast and he can talk really, really fast. But in order to actually say it without stumbling over his words, he would have to repeat it over and over again. Like, believe it or not, I've had this fucking conversation with you in my fucking head over the past week or so, like nonstop.
I do that all the time. Like if I'm in the shower, okay. There's no, I know that like self-diagnosis can be iffy at times, though it is an important process in figuring out if you've got something going on with you. But like, I hear people who have ADHD talk about what it's like to have ADHD all the time. And they mention all these things I've been doing my whole life without giving a second thought. Pacing's a big one. Stimming is obviously like a term for like broadly just doing these things. I mean, obviously my vape is a big part of that. If you ever see my hands, I'm always looking for something to do with them. I pace like crazy. Like if I'm on the phone, I'm pacing. If I'm thinking, I'm pacing. This rug has an indent behind me in a circle of me walking around in circles for hours on end thinking about things. If I'm on the phone, I'm pacing. If I'm like at my computer talking to someone, I'm fucking around with like some little gadget that I use my hands. Shit like that. Yeah.
Oh god, the stream is like a couple seconds behind. I haven't been paying attention to it because, you know, fucking anxiety and shit. And also, I've been playing with this lovely thing or occasionally squeezing this stuffed animal because, you know, a combination of anxiety and trying to like stay focused.
I flipped this little empty THC wax cartridge in my hand a lot. I twirl around old vapes. I like squeeze things. I just something I do a lot too is when I'm doing a segment, you'll notice I'm doing it right now. Like my eyes are outlining your head and your shoulders. Like I'm just like outlining your what's the word for it? There's a word for the outer line of an object or person, like in an image. What's the word for that? Outline, I guess, would just be the word for it. Like profile, I don't know. Like I do that a lot, like your microphone, but also includes your microphone. I don't know. Just weird shit I do like that makes me think, fuck. Everybody that I know that has ADHD talks about doing all these silhouette, does these same things. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get it checked out. I want to get some ADHD medication if I actually have it, because if so, that'll improve my content. My mind wanders so much when I'm doing segments and debates. If I have like even a percent closer to a more like neurotypical like mind, I guess you would say, then that would probably improve my debate skill, because I do wander off a lot in discussions.
Fuck. There we go. Dropped it. I'm in the exact same boat. Like for years, I just thought, you know, well, actually, like, oh god, like unironically, my entire life progression has been, I'm broken. Okay, I found the solution. You know. Unironically, it was, I came out as trans. I found the thing that, you know, was broken about me, and now it's fixed. And then, oh, wait, something's wrong here. Oh, I get it. I'm asexual. Next one. Oh, I'm actually not unattracted to men. Oh, I'm aromantic. Oh, fuck. Okay, finally, I found the final thing. I have ADHD, and, you know, I need to manage that somehow. No, it's like...
Well, it could be all of those things. It kind of reminds me, like, have you seen ContraPoints' Shame video?
Yes, I have.
I remember watching that, and seeing how she was having a really hard time coming out as a lesbian. And I was like, fuck, you've already come out as trans. That must be so, like, that's like smurfing, basically. Coming out as gay after you've already come out as trans that's like smurfing, you know? You're going back to something way easier, you know? But no, it is genuinely that tough for people to figure out like who they are, even when you're a lot older. You know, you're still exploring your identity. I feel pretty content with my identity. Yeah. Like I don't find myself questioning it much. I find myself pretty like happy with it, and that kind of helps me empathize with people who, like, I can't imagine what it'd be like to grow up and live your life like not entirely confident in who you are.
I mean, do you want to know
what
about
society's been built for you? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Unironically, like the best way I can describe it is it feels like you're broken or you're missing some pieces. Like for me with asexuality, like when it came to sex, I just didn't want it, but I felt like I was supposed to. Because again, at the time, I thought it was, well, I mean, at the time I was being told you're a man, you know, and obviously the image of a man is to man up, be manly, and all that good shit. But
I immediately assumed you were a cis woman. I'm gonna be completely honest with you.
Yeah, no, I got a dick and I like it. Oh my. But yeah, no, like the assumption is obviously, you know, be a man, men love sex. I tried to do the whole girlfriend thing, and when I got one, I'm like, oh god, relief. Now I don't have to try as hard. And then like we would do things like making out, and I'm just like, okay. I didn't get the appeal. Like it didn't strike me as fun, I guess is the way I could describe it. Like it felt like work to me. And after a while, I just start fucking dissociating. Like I could literally see myself, you know, like 5 feet above, just looking down at myself, just waiting for it to end. And I'm just like, fuck. And again, since I had like really good stamina, I just keep going and going until like I found a good point to just get us to stop. You know, that relationship didn't go well. And it kind of was the same with sex. Like I tried having sex and like, I'm like, okay, this is neat. Like, can I tell you a very not safe for work story? It's about the first time a girl went down on me.
I wanted to tell really quickly. I'll let you tell the story as well. I want to actually bring up a story as an example of why we need better sex ed in this country.
Yes, please do.
I didn't know what blue balls was. I'd heard about it, and I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like a thing that dudes made up whenever they want to get like to finish, right? And you know they get cut off, and the girl doesn't want to go anymore. I always thought it was like this thing that like really fucking you know, shitty dudes do to try to pressure their girlfriends into continuing to have sex with them. That was my understanding of it growing up. It's how my mom described it. Whenever that topic would come up in like a TV show, it would be joked about. That's what I thought it was. Then it happened. And oh my god, it was the first time I got it really bad was the day I lost my virginity. I did not nut when I lost my virginity. I had sex with a girl in a car in a church parking lot for multiple hours, and she came multiple times. I did not. Not because I didn't want to, not because I wasn't turned on or anything like that. More so because, I mean, there's
a 12.5 reasons. Like
you
were comfortable, you were anxious. Like there's literally 1,000.
A lot of that was that there were patrol cars going by in the parking lot, you know, driving by every few minutes, so we'd have to duck down because we're in the parking lot of the church she worked at. They had security there that were driving around. And so that was part of it. It was also being nervous. It was also being like, it's also that like physically there's a very particular way that feels best to me, and I've learned that now, and having sex in an actual bed helps me get to that point way sooner. But in a car, I wasn't going in an angle that was making me feel best, okay, that was conducive to me shooting the cock snot, one might say. But I had sex for 2 hours, 2 straight hours of basically edging. And then I got out of the car, and this is the worst part. She wouldn't let me have any of her water. She had a big thermos of water, and she wouldn't let me have any for some reason. No fucking clue why. She was a bitch. I don't know why. She was mean. But she was hot, I guess.
She was a church girl, yeah.
I was 18, she was 21, and that was appealing to me, too, because she was older than me. I've always liked girls that were older than me. And so she wouldn't even let me have water after that. After 2 hours of having sex in this car in Florida during April. So it wasn't hot. It was cold. It was very, very cold and dry in the car. So my lungs were like I could barely speak by the end because I couldn't actually like I couldn't choke out very many words because I was so thirsty. And then I got out of the car and I started walking over to the entrance of the church where my uncle was going to pick me up. My uncle was cool. He was like, "Oh, you're gonna lose your virginity? Let's pack the condoms. I'm gonna drop you off. All right." And so he comes and he picks me up, and I'm like, "I'm in so much pain. What's happening right now?" And he's like, "You're in pain? What happened to you?" And I was like, "Oh, you're a little blurry right now. You might want to, yeah." I recommend going into the settings of your camera and just turning off autofocus and turning the bar all the way down. There won't be much of a difference, and you won't get that issue where you have to deal with autofocus. And he's like, "What happened?" I was like, "My balls and my stomach and my chest, they hurt so bad. I can't walk." And he's like, "You got blue balls. Did she not let you finish?" And I was like, "No, she did. She wanted me to, but I just couldn't." And he was like, "You might have to, if that keeps happening, if you just can't finish, you're going to have to, I might have to take you to the doctor because that could be an actual problem." Thankfully, it was not an actual medical problem. It was literally just, it was in a car and I was nervous and everything. But yeah, and then the same thing happened very similarly with me and Lonnie on our first night together once she came to Florida to pick me up, where we had sex in a hotel room. We had sex for like an hour and a half or something like that. It was a while, 40 minutes at least, 45 minutes or something. And I got up and I was not able to nut, and I spent the rest of the night doubled over in a recliner chair, smoking a vape, trying to get as much nicotine as possible because it helped make the pain go away, and then passed out. And the next morning I was all right, but it's painful and it sucks. But that's how things went for me. So now me and Lonnie have a rule. She's like, "You have to nut. Do not. I know you're getting tired. It's been too long. You need to nut now, okay? I'm not going to sit there and listen to you groan all night because you've got blue balls. You need to nut." Okay, my mom just got here. We should stop talking about that.
All right. Wait, am I allowed to talk about mine or?
Yeah, tell your story. Yeah.
All right, cool. By the way, I don't know why I wasn't able to come after 2 hours. Gives like 7 reasons, like perfectly reasonable reasons why you wouldn't come. Yeah, no. Okay, makes sense. Good lord. So for me, I met this lovely girl. Met on Reddit. We hit it off. Ended up chatting. Became friends. Started dating. Right. It's a tale as old as time. It's the millennial dating experience. So we ended up getting close enough that we decided to do a get together, right? So she comes over to me. I used to live in Minnesota at the time, so she came out to fucking Minnesota, which I don't know if you know anything about Minnesota, but it's fucking boring. But
the only states that have anything interesting going on are touching the ocean.
True. Very true. Like, fuck me. But so she came out to Minnesota. Fantastic. Cool beans. And first night we just basically bum around, go all over the place. We visited like an Irish pub. We went to the zoo. I met a friend, accidentally let my Minnesotan accent drop out for a bit, and she made fun of me mercilessly.
Minnesota,
yeah. That's usually what people do, and it's like, oh my god, that's not what it sounds like. And they're like, yes, it is, and I'm like, fuck you. But yes,
it is.
It is. I know. Fuck you.
It's almost Canadian. It's so close to Canadian.
The moment I started talking about Minnesota, I slipped into it a little bit. You may have noticed.
Yeah, you want to say Minnesota.
No, it's not Minnesota. Jesus Christ. That's not the word that we get stuck on. It's different words and vowels that we get stuck on. But
cranberry, I imagine, is a weird one.
Cranberry?
Yeah, well, say it in you gotta say it in your accent though.
I don't know how to say it in my accent. I can only slip into it unconsciously. But goddamn it, don't unlock me, you little shit.
I like to fuck people. I like to fuck people. I like to fuck with people who have accents like that.
I like to fuck people with accents.
Well, I do, but I like to fuck with people who have accents like that, God. New Zealand people. They say nar instead of no. They say nar, and I always point it out. And I'm like, you're saying nar instead of no, and they'll be like, no. And I'll be like, I just heard you say nar. Like, that's how you pronounce it. Like, I like to fuck with people that.
So anyway, after we get back, we decide we're going to do sexy things. Because, we haven't gotten to get together for a couple of months now. We've been dating for a while. And we're like, let's give it a shot. So anyway, we get naked. We do the deed. We get, we get everything ready and prepped and all that good stuff. And at one point, after I start doing her for a little bit, she offers, hey, do you want me to go down on you? And I'm like, sure, I'm morbidly curious. Let's give it a shot. I wasn't out as ace at this point, so I'm like, yeah, maybe this will be the sexual experience that'll finally make me feel not broken. So anyway, she goes down on me, she is about to go down on me. So I close my eyes, lay back for a bit, just waiting for it to happen. And after about 15 seconds, I'm like, what the fuck? Why is nothing happening? And so I look down on her asking, like, what's the holdup? And she's already, balls deep in there. She'd been going for about 12 seconds or so, something like that. And I couldn't feel a fucking thing. Unironically,
Yeah.
same story. When I first went inside a girl, I had to ask her, am I inside? And she said, yeah.
Dude, okay.
So,
hold on. This.
Yeah,
I
so
was
I
so
am actually
worried.
pretty typical for an ace, or I'm the stereotypical ace person, I guess. I am aromantic, I am ace, and I hardly feel a fucking thing when it comes to sex.
Ace Aro. That's a good combination.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I had a fairly similar story. Not similar story to that, but like when it comes to that, people call me wrong hole Zandy as a meme, because it's like, all right, all right? I just let the girl just grab on and just like make sure it just guided in, you know.
Oh, that's delightful.
I'm not trying to do what I think it's PITB is the acronym. It's called put it in the butt. It's when you accidentally like you slip out and you go the wrong way in.
Yeah, those two holes are actually surprisingly close to one another.
Dangerously.
True.
Dangerously close.
True. But hey, you know what? If, here's the thing. You know how Lonnie keeps bringing up a strap-on? There isn't a way you can incorporate a strap-on into your love life, and I think it would work just fine. Instead of her wearing it, you wear it. That way there's no chance, just... one goes in one hole, the other goes in the other.
I think that's what butt plugs are for. Yeah. Oh, you guys want to hear a really fucked up fact that'll make you just kind of shiver up your spine really fast?
Please do.
Did you know that when you die, no matter who you are, when you go to the morticianer, if you're not going to be, even if you are going to be cremated, but in the meantime, they put a butt plug inside of you because you're constantly leaking shit because you're dead. So yeah, when you go to your funeral and your grandma's sitting there in the casket, she's got a butt plug in her. During that time, they bury you with a butt plug in your butt, so you're not leaking shit. Unsettling fact. It's every time.
I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that's delightful.
It's completely true. I'm not lying.
They may live the straight and narrow, but everybody dies kinky.
Everybody dies with a butt plug in their ass. Everybody gets buried with a butt plug in their ass. It's true.
Delightful.
It's very true. This is one of the things, like, when I learn facts like this, it makes deaths in movies and TV shows feel so, like gross to me. Yeah. It's like when a character dies and comes back to life and then they kiss, I'm like, you do realize that this girl that died and got brought back to life has, like, so much shit in her pants right now, right? She literally, like, I know she's alive now, but she was dead a few minutes ago. The second she died, she just unloaded a fat fucking dumper in her pants. You know that, right? And pissed herself too. God. You piss yourself and you shit when you die.
Yeah. That's pretty true. Well, you don't necessarily shit yourself, but it will leak out. But yeah, pissing yourself, absolutely.
Oh, I definitely will shit myself when I die because I only shit once a week.
Oh God, sweetie, that's not okay.
No, it's not. No.
You eat it? Do you eat a normal? Okay, I'm not.
Yeah, Lonnie cooks for me.
Doctor.
Look this. Lonnie made me. Yeah, she made me a ham. Or this is turkey and tomatoes, and it's a sandwich with turkey, tomatoes, and lettuce. I eat completely fine. Lonnie cooks for me. It's just for some reason I do not feel the need to shit, like, except for like a couple times a week, and when I need to, I go, but I just don't feel the need until then.
Oh God.
It's weird. I shit like a lizard. Yeah. Well, this is an interesting conversation. We made it to the shit topic.
I'm a little. I expected this conversation to be more about asexuality and less about kink. I'll be honest. I figured you'd be burnt out on talking about kink.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Lonnie came in and was talking to me.
Yeah. I said I was expecting this conversation to be more about asexuality than kink, but I'm not disappointed with the convo we had. Although I'm a little sad. I don't know. Like, I guess this isn't really the platform to talk about it, but like,
well, there's a lot of. If you got any extra other takes, we can bring it up, because after talking to you, I think I'll probably wrap up stream because my mom's here and we're going to watch Breaking Bad. All right. So yeah, if there's anything else you want to talk about, feel free to fit it in.
Sure. I don't know. Like, it's hard to bring this stuff up organically. Like, for example, one of the things I'd like to talk about is like the common myths and misconceptions around asexuality. Like, I mentioned the whole it's pretty new, which it's not. But like, there's a lot of them. Like, you actually mentioned one that asexuality or asexual people shouldn't be included in Pride, and also, in the same breath, say asexual people don't face discrimination. Which is like, literally an oxymoron.
Yeah, no, I think ace people need to be far more represented and advocated for. Yeah, absolutely.
I think there is one group doing asexual advocacy. I found it while I was looking stuff up. But yeah, unironically, while I was doing research for this, because like I actually have a document for related to this. I expected it to be more about asexuality than kink, so it's all asexuality stuff. And there's hardly any. Like unironically, the only comprehensive piece of literature on it started in 2012. So like literally 9 years ago was the first really big piece of data that came out on asexual people. And since then we've got like a little bit more, but like it's practically nothing. I found almost everything related to asexual people on my search, and I was looking for like 2 hours. It frustrates the hell out of me.
Yeah, there's that's an interesting thing because it's hard to like you can document and find and figure out if someone has gender dysphoria pretty easily. Like even in a kid, it's probably pretty fucking easy to tell if a kid's got gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
I see like I've had conversations with like Nazis on my channel that are like these 15-year-old white boy gamers, and I'll like talk to them, and by the end of the conversation I can tell they're going to be a communist tanky trans girl in 4 years. Like I can just tell, right? But like when it comes to ace stuff, like we know that it's a thing and it's valid because there are ace people, and who the fuck is pretending to not like sex, right? Like come on. It's one of the best things in the world. There's no ulterior motive for people to pretend like this is not a real thing.
Yeah.
That you could like realistically devise, so we know it's a thing. But yeah, you're probably. I mean, I haven't really looked into it, but if there's actually that much of a deficit of information on like asexuality and aromanticism, then yeah, that's sad. I wish there was more.
Yeah, it really is insane. Like, I don't know. Like one of the biggest problems is like with transsexuality, it's very easy to like start the ball rolling on research on what is. Sorry, I used the old medical term. Jesus, on transgender people, it's very easy because you could start from a medical standpoint. Like, oh, there are these people that literally feel so uncomfortable with their body that they literally ask for physical changes to be made. Maybe we should study them. Whereas asexual people are very much in the background, often forgotten about, and yeah, nobody wants to like talk about it. I guess it's very much a field that's related to psychology, and psychological studies are both much harder to produce. Generally produce slightly less rock solid data because like you can't just like measure physical obvious traits. You actually have to like conduct interviews, which has some degree of subjectivity and whatnot. And it's like it's kind of a recipe for a perfect storm of nobody has to know about a damn thing because like why would they need to know about it? And it's like I'm standing here, I literally was thinking about hurting myself at one point because like I thought it was broken, and it's like there's a reason we should know more about this kind of stuff. Like when does it start? Like for me, I have no idea. I don't even know if that's something you could measure, or like how many people, because like the number is just steadily growing over time, and a lot of them don't talk about it. Like a lot of ace people don't really come forward and talk about it because oftentimes they're just dismissed. Like they get a very similar treatment to like bi women and trans men and lesbians. Like they're talked about.
No, I was about to bring up trans men. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
They're talked about as if they don't have all these struggles. Like, oh my god, like this other group is taking all of the damage for you. Like you don't have these kind of problems. What do you have to worry about? And it's like, yeah, well, while gay men are getting all these attacks, they're also getting all the attention and support. And a lot of the literature that's being written is from the perspective of gay men or trans women, and then NBs or trans men or lesbians, whoever, they end up getting excluded because it's like you don't face discrimination when it's like they do. It's just quieter. Sometimes it's subtler, and sometimes it's kind of insidious. Like anger is motivating, and when you have somebody that's angry at you, your first response is to fucking get angry at them. And yeah, the coming down from that high sucks, but like at the very least, you're also going to have support after the fact, usually, especially as society gets more and more progressive. But we don't see the same proportional support to lesbians or trans men or bi women, despite the fact that they face very similar things. And usually it's just like the opposite side of the same coin,
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the so like if you're trans, there's something you have to do about it. You just need to do something about it, or you're gonna live your life in misery, right? You can't just like have gender dysphoria and then do nothing about it. It's going to lead to a lot of problems. There's no doubt about this. The data is there. If a trans person has gender dysphoria and they are not allowed to transition, their life will be made to earth-shatteringly worse by not being able to do what they want to do, to change their name, to use different pronouns, to physically or socially transition, all of these things. But when it comes to being ace, it's besides the lack of advocacy and the maybe like if you mention your ace to people, they might not know what it means, or they may like get confused or maybe be a little bit discriminatory. There's not much in comparison to say being trans that you have to do when you're ace. It's like that's your sexuality. If you're gay, then you know, like it's similar to like being gay, for example. If you're gay, then it's just like, yeah, you just keep on living your life. You have sex with people of the same gender if that's what you're into, and that's that. But like when it comes to being ace, it's just like a lot of people think of it as like, well, what do you have to deal with? No one's blocking your healthcare. Like, so people kind of like even on the left see it as like a distraction from the people who are really being discriminated against. And then I guess there's a sort of a like from an academic perspective, from people in like the medical field, they might think, why would we focus this on this as much, except for out of morbid curiosity, or not morbid, what would be the term for it? Like just curiosity, when it's kind of low priority. Like, you know, like ace people don't really seem to be killing themselves in mass. You know, there doesn't really seem to be any medical procedures ace people require. I'm not aware of ace people are killing themselves in mass to the degree that trans people are, but
I mean, they do end up getting depressed, and some of them will commit suicide, but that's largely because of how little support they end up getting. Like, for example, you're absolutely right when lefties talk about asexual people. They're like, what discrimination do you face? But like when they're talking to somebody who isn't very, very aware of queer culture, their number one answer is, that's a thing. And they'll usually look at you like okay, sure, nod their head and go along, but you know they fucking don't believe you. And it's like, you know, on the one hand, you have people who are like, what do you have to worry about? And then on the other hand, you have people who are like, you don't really exist. That has to be a joke. You're joking. And it's like, yeah, my identity is a joke to you. Yay. You know, like,
yeah.
It's also, it prevents people from like learning about their perspective, their struggles. Like, again, like I felt like I was fucking broken. And a lot of ace people feel the same way. You know, sometimes they feel like monsters or sociopaths because it's like, we don't feel this thing that everyone else says, oh no, this is perfectly normal and everybody feels this. And it's like, so what am I? You know, like,
yeah. At the same time, maybe if I looked more into history, I'd find this to be absolutely not the case. And I hope that intersectionality, which is what I practice, and I imagine you practice, and any progressive that has more than 2 brain cells should be practicing, it kind of amends this. But it feels like historically, especially here in America, civil rights and advocacy movements have been very like level by level, or like focusing on one thing at a time, right? And a lot of this has to do with like insidious motivations, like the LGBT, like gay and lesbian and bi people, maybe not even bi people, back in like the 60s and 70s during like Stonewall and all that shit.
Oh no, bi people were like really excluded from Stonewall.
Yeah.
And unironically, back in the Reagan era of things, like bi men specifically were demonized to hell and back, and they were basically blamed for straight women, mostly straight women, getting AIDS. Like, unironically, that was the stereotype. Bisexual men gave straight women AIDS, and like a lot of hatred was heaped onto bisexual men.
Yeah, it goes the other way around too. Lonnie mentioned this in chat earlier, but Lonnie is pansexual. She's been multiple like fairly like significant lesbian relationships, I guess you would call them, like 2 women in a relationship.
Lesbian traffic.
Yeah, and so she's quite aware that like lesbians hate, like a lot of lesbians hate bi women, which is, you know, pretty unfortunate, but that is pretty common even among like the LGBT community.
Yeah, those same lesbians are also often the ones who hate trans women too.
Oh yeah. A lot of turf. Unfortunately, there is a lot of like turf shit with lesbians because but I feel like when it comes to civil rights like moves, like a lot of the time, like I've heard a lot of I haven't looked super hard into it, but I've been told by a lot of people that a lot of people in the like the civil rights movement for like black people were pretty homophobic. I mean, it was the 60s. Yeah, there was like some like gay black people felt pretty ostracized by the civil rights movement to fight against segregation in like the 60s and early 70s. And to that same degree, it feels like nowadays the focus is heavily on trans women, not so much on trans men because they're seen as less of a threat
Yep.
than trans women. It's very easy to demonize trans women. And non-binary people are currently left, even by much of the trans community, as sort of like they're the trans people of today's Stonewall. It feels like for non-binary people.
I can't believe I just had this thought, but like, right wingers literally create their own fucking discourse. So like, for example, they will demonize trans women and make the discussion exclusively about trans women, and then they'll turn around and say, look at all of these women who think they are men and have been tricked by, like, they'll then like take the opportunity while the discourse is looking in this direction and then try to basically demonize people in a different direction while the discourse is, ideally showing a spotlight on another side of the community.
I have a feeling like gay people still have it pretty tough, but if you're like lesbian or gay, you've got it okay now.
Yeah,
not
relatively
good.
It depends though. Like if
it depends where you are. Yeah, there's
like if you're in the South, if you're in the South, if you're gay, there are literally parts of the city where you can't walk at night, same as people of color. You will probably get killed.
But obviously, perspective wise, like black people, for example, were liable to be like have a hate crime done upon them in the 60s and 50s, even if they were in a progressive place like Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
That's just how things were back then. And it feels like probably in the next 10 to 20, maybe 30 at most years, trans people are going to be like where gay people are now.
So
do you think so?
One of the things that you're kind of discounting, you were born with the internet. The internet has accelerated discourse like fucking light years ahead.
Yeah, I was about to mention the internet being
shit.
like a big...
Think of how far we've come. We went from legalizing gay marriage to what has it been, like a decade? And now we're talking about trans people and like quite literally considering their healthcare. Like now there are states that protect trans people's healthcare. And
it's been less than a decade. 2015 is when Obama made federally legalized gay marriage.
Like we went from that to the next milestone, and it's like, holy shit, we've actually been making really quick strides. Like these kind of things are becoming more and more normalized because of how information disseminates on the internet. But conversely, well, it also has the same effect with fucking conspiracy theories and reactionary rhetoric. Like that shit spreads like wildfire too. So it's kind of like a balancing act, I guess.
Yeah, that's the point where it's...
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
That's one of the big reasons why I defend these big companies like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube banning these large conservative figures. It's because as much as I would prefer for everybody to be able to be on these platforms and to say and do whatever they want and for the world to not really be harmed by that, like that's the ideal world that you would have. The crazies can be on these platforms and say their crazy shit and everyone would just point and laugh at them. And for a long time, that's how things were. But like... fuck, if Twitter and YouTube, if YouTube doesn't do something about these right-wing figures getting so massive and so prevalent, like we just did a video on how like in Ohio, like a significant amount of people, the people in power there, the people in the majority of power there are anti-vax. When we get to that point, it's like, no, I'm sorry. Like maybe I'll regret it in the future, but I think these platforms should have responsibility to crack down on misinformation. I don't want to live in a country where 99% of people are anti-vax, anti-gay, anti-trans, don't believe in climate change, and then boom, we're fucked, the world is ending. Like I don't want to live in that fucking world. That's not what I want. And if it means that I have to tank to risk the chance that in the future that these corporations want to crack down on leftists, then in the meantime, let's get the anti-vaxxers and the people that are pro-genocide off these platforms. Go right on ahead.
Yeah, that's also why like it's so important to see representation, and it's why the right always is like, let's make sure the gays aren't seen on TV. Keep that stuff to the bedroom, where nobody can see about it, talk about it, discuss it, or find themselves in it. Like, holy shit. The number of kids that came out as, queer because of Steven Universe is just astronomical. Just
Five Nights at Freddy's, ironically enough, did a lot for furries, I imagine.
There's a reason. The biggest reason I would argue that so many kids nowadays are coming out as queer is not necessarily, obviously, it's not because there's more of them than there are in the previous generations, but it's because they see themselves in their media. Older people, they aren't watching Steven Universe. None of the media is catered towards them. So, like, for them, they have to, like, get lucky and stumble across some kind of media that gives representation that, applies to them, Whereas kids nowadays, they can watch a TV show and it's like, oh, look, two girls kissing, and it's not a big deal. And, sometimes a little lesbian girl sees that and is like, oh, that's an option? You know, look at
It's still a pretty big deal. Like even like I'd say Adventure Time was one of the shows that really one of my favorite shows, by the way, that really pushed like the like having LGBT characters in like content that kids will be watching, and they had to hold off on PB and Marceline kissing until the finale, and then they got on HBO Max, and now they could just do that, and it's fine because it's HBO Max. But they were worried there was this sort of this is what I talk about too. Like, while it is good, and we should praise corporations to a degree for normalizing, you know, LGBT people and being a bit more progressive, they will still have their really dark, shady media. There's the Alex Hirsch tweet where Disney had them cut the gay kiss scene because the show was only halfway through its run and it was going to get banned in a lot of countries if they had a gay kiss. Same thing happened to Steven Universe, that wedding between those two characters. And then finally, they saved the Adventure Time lesbian kiss for the finale. They will... I'm not talking about the creators of these shows. The creators very clearly want to...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the big money... The big money, Legend of Korra, same thing. Big money behind these shows, while they'll change their little logo to a pride icon, when you look at that same company's division, like Saudi Arabia, it's the same old icon during Pride Month.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. As much as I loathe the fucking... here's the thing. As much as I absolutely despise companies who, like, you know, being like, we support diversity, and then as it turns out, they're pulling a Blizzard, and, like, you know, not only are they not doing that, but also, like, they're making the women who work there's lives a living hell. But at the same time, I still want to praise them for the media they put out for one simple reason. It's not for them. It's for it's for basically everybody who views it, everybody who consumes it, you know? Like, as annoying as seeing, say, God, what's a good example? Nickelodeon being like, we support the LGBT youth, while in the backgrounds they're like, yeah, let's not put a gay kiss in our show in case Russia, you know, objects. You know,
Russia and Saudi Arabia are the big ones.
Yeah, while I don't like that, at the same time, I can't argue with the fact that by basically accepting gay people, by accepting trans people and all this kind of stuff, by that being normalized, it affects people. Because, like, as much as we don't want to admit it, like, fuck, commercials affect people. Advertising affects people. They wouldn't dump millions of dollars if this shit did not affect people's decisions, didn't affect their behavior, didn't affect, you know, how they think. It has an effect, you know, and that's why it's important that even though I will criticize a company for being like, hey, look, you're not practicing what you preach, this is frustrating, you live in America, so, you know, hold yourself to American standards. But at the same time, also praising them for, like, good job, you put out media that supports and normalizes gay people. Because in my mind, being gay should be as normal and benign as, you know, being cis or white, you know.
Yeah, a really good show that I think I've mentioned this on stream. Have you ever watched The Boys?
I have watched the first season of The Boys.
You should get to the second season, because that's when the really political shit happens. Like, the show gets very political in season 2, and there's some, like, non-cringy boomer trying to, like, have political stuff that like what boomers think like the political stuff the Zoomers care about in it. They actually, like, hit the nail on the head with a lot of stuff, and I think you'll watch it and be like, oh my god, this is such, like, there are plot lines where I don't want to spoil anything, but if you watch it, just DM me on Discord and tell me what you think of season 2, okay? Because there's some scenes in there that are going to make you go, that is so fucking spot on for, like, corporate pandering and stuff. There's a whole corporate pandering arc about LGBT people in it.
Really?
There's a gay character. I'll try not to spoil it. There's a main character who is a lesbian who ends up getting back in touch with an ex-girlfriend of hers, and Vought finds out about it. Oh, yeah. It's Maeve. It's Maeve.
Yeah.
And Vought finds out about it, and they blackmail her to get back with her, ex-girlfriend, so that they can do a big pro-pride superhero thing with girl power and everything to make money. And she's really not in favor of it. And she wants to get back with this woman, but also she doesn't want to, like, give this evil corporation the ability to pander to, you know, in this way. It was really good. It was really good. And then when and obviously you probably remember in season 1, I think it happened with Starlight and her getting sexually assaulted by Deep, the Aquaman guy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And when she comes out about it after the company was trying to cover it up, they do the whole thing. We stand with Starlight to tell her story, and they make it into a big pro Me Too thing, even though they're the ones covering up what he'd done to her. Shit like that happens a lot in The Boys. It's so fucking good. Such a good show when it comes to politics.
I 100% agree. Yeah, like fuck me.
But this is a point that I want to make. This is a point that I want to make because I feel like the left can be kind of bad at this. When it comes to diversity and inclusion in media, it is really hard to get straight white boys like me, straight cishet white boys like me.
Yeah.
I guess I used straight there twice. On board with why inclusion and representation is so important. At least it was when I was a teenager until I realized this. A friend told me this, and I started using this as an example. My favorite episodes of any TV show are when the main character is going through a struggle similar to something I'm going through. If I'm going through a breakup and the main character is going through a breakup, I empathize with the character way more, and I feel like I'm more connected to the character and enjoy that episode more because I can relate, and I'm in a position where it's like, fuck, the main character's going through a situation I'm going through. I'm sort of more engaged with that. And then I imagine, okay, if you're a black person, you deal with like racism, you're probably going to get a lot more of it out of a show where the main character is black and deals with racism because you're going to relate more with that character. Or if you're trans and you've got or gay and you've got a trans or gay main character and that's some part of their story and their arc in a show, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. And once it was put into a way that I could understand why it was so important to people who weren't straight like cis het white boys, it became way more like clear to me why this representation is so important, and I've started using that as an example more since then.
Yeah, that's actually not a terrible way to put it. Yeah,
it's not the perfect comparison. Going through a breakup and being trans isn't the same.
Like,
but how do you get to it?
That's absolutely true, but like, fuck. No offense to you, my dude. Like, yes, I get it. You're a straight, a super straight, if you will. But like, how the fuck do you get to your average politically disaffected white boy? You know, like they're the ones that we got to figure out how to reach, and they're the hardest ones. They're also the ones that are most susceptible to fucking reactionary content.
Let's just say if canceling wasn't a thing, I could me and Vosh and Destiny, maybe not Destiny, but me and Vosh would be. There would be things that we'd be doing that would help get to those types of people. Being able, like, I stopped saying the R slur because I realized how it was hurting a lot of neurodivergent people in my community. But no doubt, back when I was a lot edgier and I said it, and I was just a lot more edgy, and I didn't care about what people thought of me. On the left, my channel was growing faster. I had more and more right-wing people coming to my channel and watching my content. There, you can see the line, like where I started to get a little bit less edgy, and my channel started to grow less in my analytics. You can see okay, so here's Xander Hall's channel rising in popularity when he was more edgy and he would say the R slur and he would like really go hard against these conservative content creators. And then here's when he stopped saying the R slur and started to get less edgy. Here's his sub count dropping each month and viewers going down. Like, it is legitimately like, if you're trying to appeal to that audience, you have to do what they like. You have to be a little bit edgy to get their foot in the door. But unfortunately, when you're a left-wing content creator, you're going to suffer from that to a degree.
I feel like there's an easier way to do that. Like, I feel like you and Vosh do this pretty well, which is like, well, you particularly. Like, you are very much the approachable, I'll just say it, you're an approachable fuckboy. Like,
not even anymore. Not even anymore really to such a degree.
Like, here's the thing. Your debate with Sprouticus, or your discussion/debate with Sprouticus was excellent. Because, like, for example, when I talked to him, he just fucking kept going on and on about the same stupid shit. He never actually talked about anything that he believed in. And, he just kept getting stuck on a point. You actually got him to, like, talk about his beliefs on fucking camera. That is hard to do. And that is something that can really only be done when people feel comfortable talking with you about that kind of shit. And when they let their guard down a little bit. Like, when you are edgy, like, I feel like, I don't know. You are still edgy, like being somebody who's willing to talk about sex and making the fucking women jokes and all the stupid shit you do. Like, that shit does humanize you to them, and it gives them a foot in the door to like see themselves in you. Yeah, you might not be growing as fast, but I would argue that that's probably not a bad thing necessarily. I'd point out that those right-wingers are probably not going to stick around or pay you.
Well, many of them do, and many of them do get pulled over. It's one of the big appeals of Destiny, like peak... most politically effective, most enjoyable to watch, in my opinion, Destiny was 2016, mostly 2017 Destiny. It's when he dropped slurs regularly, but never in like a discriminatory way. It was never something, he never cared about getting canceled for saying a slur. He was very, very like insulting and edgy in debates and conversations and response videos. Like, I think the thing that me and Vosh have to our benefit is our identities. No edgy transphobic edgy gamer boy is going to listen to a trans person explain to them why being trans is okay.
True.
You're already being trans. You're already part, like, they've already discounted your opinion. They don't care. But if you're a sort of like gamer boy edgy, like if you're one of them, and you make the arguments, they aren't right off the bat discrediting you just off of your identity. And that's something that me and Vosh have in our ballpark, like in our as a thing that we can do. But like, I don't consider myself edgy nowadays. I'd say I'm pretty tame now. Edgy Xander Hall was back when I first started doing politics and I still played 2B2T, and I really like just immersed myself in edginess. Like, if I wanted to be edgy, like, I could, if I had no fear of cancel culture, there's tons of things I could say and do that I know wouldn't actually be bad because I don't have any like bad intentions behind it. But like, I would get canceled for, and they would be more politically effective, but I don't, because I know that kind of behavior can hurt certain people. Like saying the R slur hurt the feelings of a lot of people who watch my content. I don't want to do that, and obviously it gets me canceled. There's nothing to gain from that. Saying the N word would probably be pretty damn beneficial if I was trying to bring Nazis over to listen to my arguments, but probably don't want to be saying the N-word. 1, because I'd get banned. 2, because there's black people in my audience and they aren't cool with that.
Yeah. I see that. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I don't think you're not edgy. Because, like, think about the fucking discussion we just had. We talked about kink candidly. We talked about, like, your fucking sexual conquests and shit. Like, a person could easily see themselves in you. It's just, these are the kind of things that I think, if you want to move them over, these are the kind of things you're going to have to focus on. Not on, like, a debate, but trying to frame it in a discussion. If it's going to be a discussion, they're not going to be as defensive. They're going to open up, and you can humanize yourself in their eyes a little bit. Like, if you're talking to a dude, and like, an excellent example. Sorry, I keep bouncing around. But, like, for example, one good example of a thing you do that humanizes you to them is, like, your stupid your coldest water bottle shill thing. This is the one that she tells you not, or this is you, and this is the one she tells you not to worry about.
The two water bottles. Kind of shit,
that is great. Like, one, it shows that leftists can be they can have irreverent, they can have gross, they can have silly humor. Like a lefty can talk about how, I absolutely love grabbing a girl by her hair and then ramming a dildo 6 inches into her ass. I can talk about that kind of shit, and it's fine, because the left doesn't give a shit, not really, and like the left do, fuck them.
Yeah,
like, they have no fucking power.
When I say edgy, I mean more so like,
I know.
Like, here's like a good example of something I did back in the day that people thought was really funny, but I did get a little canceled for, mostly by TERFs. Though she's dead now. Her name's Magdalene Burns. Horrific woman, horrific vitriolic TERF woman from the UK, who advocated for, honestly, wanted trans people dead. And she was like a fairly big YouTuber. And what I ended up doing was saying, I'm so glad this bitch is burning in hell now. And then I stood up and I in my chair, I was back in Florida. I stood up and I looked down at the ground and I did a little bit where I was like yelling at her down in hell, because she's, dumb, stupid TERF dead, and making fun of her for being dead. And I spent a while making fun of her for being dead. There's nothing, and I think the words I said was, there's nothing that makes my heart flutter more than knowing that people I hate are fucking dead. Like, jokes like that, that's what I really consider edgy. Those are the types of things that I said a lot back in the day that really kind of pulled people in. But don't get me wrong, like the sex jokes and things like that aren't quite as like non-PC aren't, like, they're edgy, but like, not the same kind,
I agree with you to an extent, but like, I feel like that's the easy way to be quote unquote edgy. That's the easy way to get them to lower their guard. Because, like, let's be honest, fucking racist people, they don't want to be talking about black people 24/7. They don't want to be dropping the fucking N-word 24/7. And unless they're like a repressed gay kid, they aren't gonna want to talk about how much they fucking hate gay people. They're gonna want to talk about shit that they actually give a shit about. And that is where I feel like you can attack and be quote unquote edgy and irreverent, sorry. And get them to essentially humanize you, because that's the thing. When they're coming into a conversation with you, they ain't looking at you as a person. They're looking at you as an obstacle, as an ideologue, as like, not a real person.
You're absolutely right. This is a problem the left had with optics back in 2016, where every left-wing content creator was either the biggest left-wing content creator at the time was John Oliver. Ironically, his YouTube videos, his clips going up on YouTube, that was the biggest left-wing stuff. It was super professional, and there were some jokes there, but like, do you really consider John Oliver edgy? Like in the same way that like edgy gamer bros are edgy?
Some of his shit's pretty out there, like his constant sexual harassment of who is it?
Adam
Kylo
Driver.
Ren? No.
Yeah, Adam Driver,
Yeah, Adam Driver.
Like, but that's like, but even then, most likely an edgy gamer boy's response to that would be to call him the F slur and then dislike the video and move on. You know, like that's the thing though, right? There's a lot of like the edgy humor that like I know the right is super into is stuff that could never fly on these platforms. Like if I could really go like full on like power level 9000, like the type of shit that the edgy boys were passing around the discords I hung out in before I got out of the alt-right pipeline was like a lot of gore. One of the most common things that they would post was the same fucking video of this like kid in, I'm assuming like it must be like maybe India. I don't know. He looked black, but not like African black, I guess. Like maybe in like India. Yeah. Like really, really Western India, falling down onto like a train track and being cut in half. That's the kind of shit that these types of people share around and laugh about and joke about in their discords. And that's really fucked. But that's the kind of edgy that these people are into. That's the kind of edgy
Here's the thing. I would say that is a litmus test for who is not going to be saved. Like, here's the thing. I would agree with you that a lot, or well, not a lot, but some of the people in those spaces will absolutely do that kind of stuff. But like, I feel like the people who share those kind of things, or the people who originally share those kind of things, they are the ones who can't be saved. And if that's the way that you're going to be able to get in with them, I mean, chances are you're not going to change them unless like you become their friend, and then over the course of years you literally slowly wean them off of their toxic ideology and convince them that, hey, no, the reason your life is so shit is because you keep spending your time with communities that drag your life down into the fucking mud and force you to stay there. Well, like in my mind, the people who share those memes are usually doing it because they're trying to have a sense of community, you know? But
I was about to say the exact same thing. When I laughed about those memes with my friends, I didn't think it was actually funny. Yeah. I just wanted to blend in with the edgy boys. I don't want to be that one prude who says, bro, why would you post that? I didn't want to be that guy. I imagine the person who posted that thought that everybody else in that Discord server, or all the Discord servers I'd hang out in, were like super also very edgy, and they wanted to see if they could get cred for it. It's a battle. It's very much like 4chan, only it's on Discord, where everyone's battling to out-edge each other, and people are afraid that if they show the smallest bit of sincerity, then they'll be, the term for it is a care F slur.
No, I got you.
Yeah, that's the term that would be used, or a moral F slur is a common one too. You never want to be a moral F slur, would be like the thing, right? And that was like, you never want to be the guy who said, bro, that's way too far. And I was the guy who didn't want to say, bro, that's way too far. None of them wanted to be the guy that said, whoa, that's way too far. Yeah. And while they may be more susceptible to messaging that engages in that kind of stuff, like if we joked about shit like that on my stream, far-right people may be way more likely to come in there, even if they are just one of those people who it's been normalized to them because they want to seem like they're cool and edgy. I don't know. It's just, there's a line you have to draw.
Like, it's an easy ticket to get them to listen to you and to let their guard down. That's part of why it's so useful for you, for somebody in your position. It's really easy, but the problem is that it has its own drawbacks. It's a very good short-term solution for a long-term problem that has long-term problems that won't become apparent until it's already too late. For example, you mentioned the r slur thing, right? Like, you also mentioned the exact problem that would start to occur. You would pull in more and more right-wingers who would primarily become your income givers, because if you kept being that edgy, irreverent person who was using the r slur, using the f slur, those kind of things. It
doesn't last.
Yeah. Like, if you did that, you would push out the left-leaning people and pull in the right-leaning people until eventually the right-leaning people dwarfed the number of left-leaning people, and they're the ones paying your bills. And then all of a sudden you have this coercive incentive to start.
It
Yeah, you
it
see.
would be you're close, not quite on. What would actually happen would be I would become a bus stop for people's political journey, not a place that they're willing to stay.
Potentially, that's assuming you don't burn yourself out, though.
Yeah, well, the idea would be that, like, people, my purpose would be I'm a temporary stay. People who are on the right that are going to end up going to the left would stop by my content, get more left-leaning, because this is typically what happens. Like, this is what happened to me. I was super edgy but still left-leaning when I first started getting to Destiny, but then hanging out in his Discord very quickly. That was a place, while it's pretty edgy, you're not allowed to say slurs, you're not allowed to do certain things. So I sort of conformed to that environmental area, and the edges got rounded out, like a rock tumbler. And so that's what my community would be, like a rock tumbler. People would come in super edgy, come out not very edgy, but then by the time that they come back to watch my stream and they're not very edgy anymore, I'm making jokes that they are not cool with now. They've been conditioned out of being into that edgy stuff. They're going to go move on to some more, a bit more like someone like, I don't know, Demon Mama, who is edgy, but not in the way that I would be in this scenario. And I would be a leaking bucket. While there would be a faucet dropping people in, like susceptible to left, right-wing people in, they'd be falling out of the bucket faster than they'd be coming in, and I would see no actual tangible success. That's what I think would probably happen if I did that.
The only problem I have with that is the more right-wingers you pull in, particularly with the red or reverent humor, the more likely the left, like, think of it like this. How are you going to find enough moderators to moderate the more extreme people that pop into your stream if most of the lefties get kicked out?
Well, we had to stop that early on in my streaming career. We had a lot of recovering Nazis and recovering, like, far-right people in my community, and we had a quarantine zone. We call it Chud Quarantine, and we had the mods that put them into an area where they could not interact with anybody else, but other people could come in and interact with them. That was the Chud Zone. That is where people who felt like they had the fortitude to be able to handle the horrific things that these people believed or were still trying to condition themselves out of could go voluntarily to interact with those people, but they couldn't come interact with the general population, where you had, like, trans girls and young LGBT people and people questioning their identity that could be, engaged, expose those people, which would not be healthy for them in my community. That's how we did it, but eventually that became unnecessary because we got rid of the Chud Zone. We don't get any recovering Nazis coming in my community anymore, not like we did in 2019. Everybody who stumbles across my videos now are left-leaning people who already agree with me. I have no dissent in my community from right-wing people anymore. It hasn't been a thing since mid-2020.
I mean, I can see that, but I would also say, like, while you have lost some of your growth, you've also gained quite a bit of stability. Like,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, like, I would argue that for a start, you're a better debater. For second, it's much easier for you to be taken seriously by the content creators who help you produce your content, Like, you could become a React Andy channel and whatnot, but I feel like that's not where you're kind of at your best. Where you're at your best is when you're having discussions with people. Because, again, like, Vosh is very, how do I put it? Vosh is adorable, and he's a bit of a... God, what's the right word?
Well, I want to remind you really quickly, though, that Vosh is... He does put on sort of a character for stream to a degree.
But that's the point.
Like, real Vosh is the guy who offered me, like, $3K to help me move out to California.
Yeah, no.
I know.
But the thing is, like, Vosh comes off as, like, this... kind of like a titan of a dude, Like, he's very intellectual. He's, like, very smart. He's hard to argue with. But at the same time, like, the dude's also really tough to approach if you're relatively small. If you want to just have a discussion, sometimes it feels like he's not as approachable, whereas you are. You are the type of person where a person who disagrees with you can come in, chat with you, try to give their perspective, but then walk out of it with your perspective, which they wouldn't have had and they wouldn't have taken seriously as they would have with Vosh. Like, Vosh is a lot of things, but one thing he is not is... well, humanizing, No offense, but like...
Yeah, he does have sort of a more... he's got a lot more pizzazz to him, I guess you could say, like showmanship,
God, he really does. That's what
I'm
I meant to say.
I'm mostly myself on stream. Like, I'm not saying he's playing entirely a character, but he exaggerates parts of his personality and he puts on a show. That's his whole thing. Even when he's doing a game stream, he's still putting on a show. I have a hard time doing that. I'm very genuine, and being genuine, I'm not... genuine people don't tend to be that interesting unless they've got very interesting lives. I don't have a very interesting life overall. Like, most of the interesting parts of my life have been told and said, and stories have been talked about on stream plenty of times. Besides that, it's just a guy responding to political stuff, and that's what I am. And when I do gaming streams, I'm just a guy who likes politics and occasionally talks about it playing a video game. And that's why, like, I'm not quite as big as someone like Vosh, who does a really good job putting on a show, even if it's a gaming stream.
One thing I will say is I think you are at your best when you are the type of person that people could see themselves having a beer with, you know? Like, that is, I feel, the niche you fill really well as far as, like, attracting right-leaning people. I don't think you're going to attract Nazis anymore. Like, no offense, my dude, but you're, what is it? You're left cucked, you know? You're stuck here.
I'm a left cuck now, I've kind of got, like, come to terms with that, and mostly my messaging is more so to bring in people who are already agreeing with me, not already agreeing with me necessarily, but who are a bit more susceptible to my rhetoric. Like, libs are what I typically find myself bringing in now, bringing liberals over to being more like maybe like edgy libs to being like intersectional. Like,
you've literally just moved so that instead of being like the entry point to the pipeline, you are now just one step over. I would argue somebody like what is his name? Innuendo Studios is probably a much better one. It's a very clinical video. But, like, if a Nazi stumbles across that, it's very easy for them to see themselves in some of the characters in those videos.
I was so sad when I found out Innuendo Studios hates me. Oh, that made me so sad. It's one of the things that I wish I'd known this. Like, if you're going to be, like, a bread tuber, if you plan to go down that road, just know that many people that you look up to now, you're going to find out are complete pieces of shit.
Oh, no, I know.
It's so sad. I found out what's his name? He's the guy who does leftist analysis of movies and TV shows. What's his name? Fuck, I can't remember his name right now. Fuck, he's not huge, but he's still pretty big. He's somewhat similar to Innuendo Studios. Not maybe his name's Dan Olson. What's his YouTube channel name? It's something critic or movie something. Not Your Movie Sucks. YMS Likes Me is cool. He specifically does leftist analysis of movies. I need to find out right now, or I'm gonna.
All right, I was gonna say, you know, I get it. Like, how do I put this? I have gone through the transgender community. I've gone through the lesbian community. I've gone through the bisexual community, the asexual community. I've become a lefty. Like, I have learned many times over that just because a person can be right doesn't mean they're not an asshole.
Folding Ideas, that's his name. Sorry, I'm so sorry that Folding Ideas, it turns out, is like, I'm so sorry, I had to know.
No, I know.
Renegade Cut, not Folding Ideas, Renegade Cut. Thank you, Lonnie. It was Renegade Cut. Renegade Cut's apparently a massive piece of shit. Like, as a human being, just a complete piece of shit, even though he makes good videos. Yeah. And Sean is obviously a huge piece of shit on Twitter. You're probably aware of that.
Yeah, I've seen some of his fucking questionable things.
Thought Slime is like subhuman scumfuck levels of a piece of shit. Corvidae, same goes for them. You'll just realize that a lot of like left-wing people that you admire, look up to, that are like content creators, this is just true of no matter how you become a YouTuber and what community you're in, are just pieces of shit that'll hate you.
When you're aromantic, how do I put this? The parasocial doesn't affect me as strongly, and I attribute that to me being aromantic. For me, I don't see these people as people. I don't see their content as like a content of their character. I don't like them, and therefore, or I don't like their content, and therefore transplant that liking of their content onto them. I don't know. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I feel like it might be. Like, for me, I can very easily separate the person from the content, unless the content is like reprehensible. But I'm like, I don't care how nice of a person you are. You say some pretty dodgy shit. But like, you know.
Yeah. I guess that like, is
yeah, sorry.
It is pretty parasocial, and now like I don't build parasocial relationships with other content creators in the sphere because I'm one of them and I've talked to them, right? I don't have a parasocial relationship with Vosh. I just have a social relationship with Vosh.
I don't know. You have a parasitic relationship with Vosh, I'd say. Hopping in there, debating him, trying to steal some of his viewers away from him.
To be clear, I should be more shameless and try to catch those raids and shit, those hosts and raids. But no, like, I guess the thing is that you're going to find that, at least for me, I was under the assumption that that BreadTube, as it was getting its name back then, was going to be a left-wing other side of the coin to the anti-SJW movement in 2016. Now, little did I know, and I know most of this because of Seanhead, there was all sorts of drama happening between content creators and people who hated each other with the anti-SJW stuff. But they didn't really air their dirty laundry because they were being politically effective, unlike the left. But like with the left, within like a couple months, and once I hit 10K subs, I assumed that I was going to start like having friendships with larger like left-wing political content creators. Like, I've never spoken to Philosophy Tube. Like, I'm like, if there was a content creator who was like anti-SJW back in 2016, who had 1 million subs like Philosophy Tube, they would be friends with the people who had like 60,000 subs. Not really a thing on the left. There's not as much like in-group cohesion as there is on the right, you know? Not as many of us are friends as you would think. I mean, obviously, yeah.
I could state the obvious as to why that is partially. Like, think about it. Again, the right strategy is to fracture their opposition as much as they can, because they can't win in a straight-on fight. You know, they're guerrilla war fighters. So their goal is to make sure that everybody else is fighting. You know, people who rise against them are fighting.
I see it the other way around. I think of the left and what we're doing as a very shoddily put together ragtag political movement online when it comes to left-wing YouTube. We don't really have that much behind us. The right, on the other hand, feels like sometimes I feel like the right online is a colossus, and my part is to chip. I'm sitting there with like a little tiny rock hammer, and I'm chipping away little bits like Andy Dufresne making his hole out of Shawshank Prison. You know, that's how I feel over the course of decades. That's how I feel when it comes to me taking down the right. And there's a lot of us with those little rock hammers, and some of us have bigger rock hammers than other ContraPoints, and Vosh have bigger rock hammers cutting away at that colossus than I do. But like the right has so much money around it, way more power in the real world, and especially on the line, online, the left, besides like, I guess like if we're talking about gay Minecraft stands on Twitter, you know, the left has a lot of power behind that, I guess. But when it comes to full-on political engagement, besides like cancel culture on Twitter, the left doesn't feel like it has as much social power online than the right does.
Well, to be fair, that's because it never did. Like, think about it like this. It's less that it feels like they have less, and it's they never had any to begin with, and they're only now starting to get roused, you know? Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to figure out where... It's kind of like one of those chicken and egg situations where you don't know where one starts and the other, follows. Or, that's a terrible way to put it. It's hard to tell which one is... My brain is dying. I think that's probably a sign that we've been talking a little too long.
Yeah, I haven't eaten. I got to eat the sandwich and watch Breaking Bad with my mom. But yeah, I guess I appreciate you coming on today, and of course I appreciate your support of the channel. You're a pretty regular donator, and of course it's always appreciated. And I guess I want to add like one last bit. This is like, for anybody who has like a conception of me in their brain that isn't accurate, this is what I actually am, okay? I'm a 22-year-old dude who is desperately trying to grow a YouTube channel as a career, who lives paycheck to paycheck and is constantly wondering, okay, what should I stream tomorrow because I need to get enough viewers that, you know, that it's even worth streaming, and I'm going to make enough that I can afford to pay my bills. And I'm constantly looking for a way to keep content flowing so that my channel doesn't die. That's who I actually am. I'm not this like political debate lord or this like unapproachable, super huge content creator who is somehow better than anybody else. It's not what I am. I feel like I do get that impression from Hassan of all the left-wing content creators. I think Hassan gives off the untouchable, like, colossus impression. Like, I don't feel like I have any chance of ever interacting with Hassan unless I'm at like a real life convention and he can't physically get away with me, because Hassan has no reason to Hassan doesn't even talk to Vosh, and Vosh is huge. Hassan's like so up there that like no one can approach him. I don't want to give the feeling that I get from Hassan's content to my audience, I guess. I try to be very, very genuine with people, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, that definitely comes across in a lot of your content, you know? Like, you seem like a very chill dude. Again, you seem like the kind of guy a person could have a beer with. I don't think people have the same feeling with, Vosh or Hassan. And I feel like that's also your greatest strength, and also the thing that could be weaponized against you, you know? Like, you are very honest, and I feel like Oh fuck! I just looked, and apparently because fuck. If I have your stream open and I press my push to talk key, it just keeps pressing that fucking button in your chat. So that's
Oh,
always,
okay, okay.
yeah.
I don't.
So I don't know. I like you as you are, my dude. I think you're doing a great job. I think you should try to keep doing as you're doing. Maybe try to work on your consistency a little bit. I feel like that's your weakest point right now. Like, you're doing a great job. It's just you need to be a little more consistent. You're an infinitely better debater at this point. You're better with your rhetoric. You're better with getting your arguments out there without getting stun locked and things like that. I think you're doing a good job, and I think you're on the right track. And I think even though you have your doubts, and even though you have like those, yeah, I have to admit it was easier back in the past, I think you're heading in the right direction. And also, this is wholly has nothing to do with asexuality anymore. But oh god, it was a fun conversation I got to have with you. Thank you for having it with me.
Hey, no problem. Every conversation I have with people
True.
derails to weird shit. Okay, remember? Did you see my conversation with JXE?
I might have, though I don't recognize the name.
Okay. JXE is a pretty big YouTuber that I'm friends with, and I had a conversation with them, and it went from like we were talking about some like political stuff to tentacles and shit. So that's where all the conversations with me tend to go. It always gets weird and dragged in the mud.
I don't know. Like, at the very least, between the two of us, we have the excuse of both of us have unmedicated ADHD, and that usually leads to very interesting and convoluted conversations.
Yeah. I also ended up talking to Hunter about weed the other day when we were talking about the Prime Kai's drama. But I appreciate you coming on today. I really do. Yeah, so is there, really quickly, do you want to shill to the audience right now? Because this is going to go up as a YouTube video.
Yeah, I figured as much. Unfortunately, I don't really have much to shill, I guess. I'm a regular chatter here. CrafterLula is the name I usually go by. I have a Twitter, same name. I have a YouTube channel, same name. Though I've privated my videos and I hardly ever tweet. So, I don't know. If you want to follow me, feel free. I might take Xander Hall's advice and give creating videos a try again. But, we'll see at this point. It'd be kind of a pet project just for funsies. But thank you for having me on very much, Xander Hall. I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, you too. And you should definitely take another crack at making videos. Just from talking to you, I know you've got the personality and the demeanor for it. The question is whether or not you'll get big, because I do genuinely think that being a sociopath really helps people get big on YouTube. Because I have like so many moral quandaries with things I know I could be doing right now that would help my channel so much. But it's like, fuck. One, I'm worried that doing those things will open me up to claims I'm like selling out or I'm a grifter. And two, I have moral like quandaries with those things. Like, it just makes me feel bad to do it. But there's so many things I could be doing right now that are shameless as fuck that would help my channel grow. But yeah.
It's the allure of capitalism.
Yep. Yeah, maybe. Should I get more shameless? Do you think I should be more shameless?
A little bit, but be careful how you do it. Like if it's like things like sponsorships and whatnot, personally, I don't give a rat's fucking ass. Whatever you can do to keep the lights on, that's fine by me, just so long as it's not going to compromise your content. Like your coldest water bottle thing, I know you got a little bit of flack for that, but I think it's fucking fine. I think it's great, Like
yeah, I've only taken sponsors. I'll only take sponsors from companies that I like, and I use these. This isn't sponsored segment, by the way. The sponsored segments for this water bottle are like, I'm only allowed to do a sponsored segment once every 3 days. So it's like 2 days in between each time I upload a video with a sponsored segment. It's the only time they count for like the sponsorship. But like these water bottles are good. Like this is what I drink out of every time. I fill up the water bottle in like the evening. Usually that's when I wake up, and it stays frozen. Like there's ice in there, and it stays full as long as I don't drink it all.
Wait, holy shit!
Until the next evening.
Lonnie just posted my fucking YouTube channel in chat. Holy shit!
Oh yeah, Lonnie's good at clicking around on the internet. But everybody go check out CrafterLula's channel. Definitely give them a sub and a like and a ring the bell icon and all those things. And hopefully you'll make some content soon. Thank you for coming on today.
Holy shit. No biggie. Thank you for having me. I hope you have a good one, my dude.
You too. Saya. That was a fun combo. I had fun there. That was cool. We talked about all sorts of cool stuff. Well, guys, if you enjoyed that video, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon if you haven't already, follow my social media down below, and join my fan Discord. Definitely follow me on Twitter. That's where all the spicy memes happen. And, of course, if you want to support me financially, you can donate, subscribe, or gift subs on my website, xanderhall.com/live, on my YouTube channel, you can hit the join button, or you can super chat to support me there. And on Twitch, you can get a free sub with Amazon Prime if you have it, or you can gift subs, or just sub normally. And of course, you can support me directly through Patreon and Streamlabs. Once again, links are all in the description. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.